and Moses both just have enormous respect for each other.
Come live with me.
What gladiator has that big striped spear and that
during dessert.
Look, the judges are nodding. Even the Egyptian judges are impressed.
Galileo, until recently, you claimed that the Earth revolved around the sun.
Welcome to History Bites. I'm Rick Green. Everyone wants to know the future, whether it's election results or stock market trends or tomorrow's weather. And even when these carefully calculated predictions turn out to be complete crap, we keep coming back for more. We want to know. That's the appeal of astrology. It's still popular today despite being a load of bunk. I know, I'm a Scorpio, so I'm skeptical. But back in the 1500s, astrology was huge, and experts struggled to make it even more accurate. In fact, during the Renaissance, many astrologers made big profits. Some claimed they were big profits, but Michel de Nostradamus, or Nostradamus, did both. He went on to become the most famous astrologer of all time. So let's go back to 1558 and see what the future has in store. I mean, if Nostradamus launched a successful career based on his books, imagine how big he'd have been if he had television.
But let's hear what the author himself says. Welcome, Nostradamus.
Hi, Sue.
Nostradamus, will your book offer the 7 secrets of highly successful people? Will it give people the life strategies to win friends and influence people?
Well, Sue, that's a question everyone is asking, and the answer is in the book itself. Mavis will soon die, and then it will pass. A terrible destruction of beasts and men, and suddenly we will see vengeance at last. 100 hands, thirst and hunger, when the comet comes then.
Wow, that's so reassuring. Is there any doubt, folks? Any other predictions for the very near future, Nostradamus?
In the very near future, each person who is watching now will be given a chance, a coming together of circumstance, an opportunity to learn how to order their very own copy of my book.
Wow, that is so true. And while we wait for that opportunity to arrive, let's talk to a caller for Nostradamus. We have Louise from Tuscany.
Hi, Mr. Nostradamus.
Hi, Louise.
I have this problem.
Is it something to do with your health?
Oh my God, yeah!
Wow.
Now, I'm picking up something to do with your lungs. A respiratory problem, maybe? Do you have a cough?
Isn't he amazing?
It's like you read my mind.
No, he didn't read your mind. He read your stars.
That's right, Louise. Reading minds would be Satan's work, but the stars are put there by God to give us messages. From the star over Bethlehem that told the 3 shepherds of the Savior's birth, to the stars over my hometown that told me, because of adultery, a lady's fury is shown. She keeps a secret from the prince in a plot, but soon the real culprit will be made known, and 17 others will be killed on the spot.
Fantastic. Thank you, caller. Now, people are raving.
Our understanding of the human body comes from which scientist?
The ancient Greek physician Galen.
Correct. Jerome, whose works are the standard reference for modern students of astronomy?
God.
The ancient Egyptian astronomer Ptolemy. Duncan, the birth of a 2-headed baby and a 2-headed horse in 1554 were signs of what?
Tetragenic chemicals poisoning the water supply?
Looming division in France.
What about the people who want to be able to make their own prophecies around the clock?
Well, Sue, I get a lot of requests like this. That's why so many people are buying the book. It's the power performance tool that gives you the edge in today's competitive renaissance. Princes, kings, nobles, high church officials are all ordering this book for the knowledge and the foreknowledge. Now, how do you think the leaders in our society become so successful and powerful?
By being born into royal families?
Right, exactly. families who have money to hire astrological experts who can tell them the future. Now, you can have that too.
Now, before we bring out the Grand Inquisitor to demonstrate some amazing instruments of torture right here on our stage, including the infamous filling a person with water, I'd like to welcome our newest sponsor to the Spanish television network, American Tobacco. Now, since tobacco first arrived here a few months ago, Spaniards everywhere have been enjoying its calming, soothing effects. Okay, now, right here on our stage, the Spanish Inquisition. Wearing the pointed dunce cap of the Jews are the accused heretic.
Seeing a tortoise shell indicates what obvious fact?
That you didn't feed him right?
That an accidental death will soon follow. Robert, the Gandillion family were famous for being what?
Great singers.
Werewolves.
Amazing. Now, tell us about the book. Folks want to know.
Well, Sue, it's a big book, and it's all-inclusive, unless you live past the year 3797. Seriously, Sue, right here in this book, you'll find nearly 1,000 four-line poems, every one foretelling a significant world event.
Now, is it easy to read?
Well, I like to say if you can read my prophecies. And if you can decipher 4,000 lines of cryptic doggerel, you can understand exactly what I'm getting at.
Sounds like fun. You know, my kids love riddles.
Then they'll go bubonic over this, Sue.
You have netted a formidable 3. Who has tripped over a black cat only to fall face first into a mirror? Whose abra has lost its cadabra?
You remember my cousin Jacques, George. He was the one who wore furry boots.
Why did he wear furry boots?
Because it was winter, George.
What was I thinking?
Yeah, he went to the tailor on account of it was so cold and tried on one of the doublets. The tailor said, "You want a doublet?" But my uncle thought he said double it, so he put on a second one.
Double.
Don't be silly, George. It's called a triplet. He became a very famous general.
Is that right?
Sure. That's when he yelled his famous command, "To the breaches, lads."
You know, Gracie, I think you mean breach. The break in the front line.
No, I mean breeches. The break was in his pants. He couldn't sit for weeks. Luckily, he'd been killed in the battle, so no one noticed.
Well, all these prophecies are based on the finest astrological research.
And this is using the Chaldean method.
This is using the Chaldean method. And what's more, every group of predictions is arranged as a 4-line poem with proper rhymes.
You know, Michael, I am a huge poetry fan, but poetry books are so expensive. This book has got to be worth it for the poetry alone.
Well, that's a good point, Sue. There are nearly 1,000 poems in here.
Do you think you could read us some of your poems now?
Well, sure. This is a little one I like to call Century 1, number 75. The tyrant of Siena will occupy Savona. The Fort won, he will hold the marine fleet. The 2 armies for the march of Ancona. Because of terror, the chief examine his conscience about it. About it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
What's that about exactly?
Well, I just write them, Sue. It's up to everyone else to figure them out. It's up to you. Call now, get the book, and get the edge you need.
Stay tuned for horoscope readings by a proper qualified astronomer. Back in 1558, with the Renaissance at its height and new ideas flooding Europe, it was difficult to sort the facts from the fantasy. Even universities taught a mix of ancient nonsense and modern nonsense. So astrologers had a field day. But most self-respecting astrologers hated Nostradamus because his work was so sloppy and inaccurate. Well, it was probably tough combining his work as an astrologer with his day job as a doctor. Unfortunately, he wasn't much of a doctor either.
Are you the victim of fraud, injustice, or shady dealings? Call me. I'm Goldenhawk. I'm a knight errant and a friend of the little guy. Pierre Dix paid 20 crowns for a personalized birth chart from Nostradamus along with a reading. The mistakes in that reading ruined his life. That's when he contacted us for help.
Well, he said when I was 24, I would inherit a fortune from a stranger. And at the time, it seemed like a good idea. Still does.
Did this affect the way you handled your affairs?
Oh, sure it did. I mean, when you know you got money coming like that, you spend a little more, you know. I racked up huge debts.
Now, you're now 26.
That's right.
Have you inherited a fortune from a stranger?
No.
Have you inherited a large sum of money from a stranger?
No, sir, I have not.
Has any stranger died and willed to you a rich inheritance?
Not at all, no.
This prediction clearly says that you would receive an inheritance of great value bequeathed by a stranger. Did that happen?
It did not happen.
No bequest, birthright, legacy, heritage that was bestowed?
Not really, no.
So none of Mr. Nostradamus' predictions came true.
Well, he did predict the man who opens the tomb when it is found and does not close it immediately, evil will come to him that no one will be able to prove. Which is, you know, pretty much what happened last year, only it wasn't a tomb, it was a sack of bread, and the evil came to my brother when he broke his toe.
We tried to speak to Nostradamus at his Provence home. However, he had vacated the premises.
He ain't here.
Where is he?
We don't know. That's why we're looting his house.
Why is that?
Because we're looters?
No.
No, we're Lutherans.
No, we hate Lutherans. Oh, hi.
These neighbors of Nostradamus had plenty to say about the astrologer's blasphemous religious beliefs and his questionable ability as a doctor.
Okay, the thing is, this Nostradamus guy, right? Like, his family's converted Jews, right? So he's like the devil's servant.
Yeah, and he's like a crap doctor, too.
Is that right?
Yeah, okay, so his lordship, who lives on the hill, right? His wife was sick with the plague, so he goes to Nostradamus for medicine. Guy gives him these rose pills, right? Like the smell's supposed to cure the plague, right?
Yeah, and they taste good, eh?
Right, so then guess what happened?
She died.
Oh, you gave it away,
Hey, come on, I did not. It was obvious. Come on, it's irony.
Okay, so she dies of the plague, right? But like 2 days later, nice cure, eh? Although I gotta say, she smelled great. You know, like we went up to the coffin and gave her a sniff.
Yeah. Hey, tell him what I smelled.
No!
Come on!
Tell him what I smelled!
Moving from the world of medicine to science, new research shows the universe may be more complex than first thought. The traditional view was that everything is made up of 4 elements. The Greeks knew this, the Romans knew this. Then for a long time, everyone forgot about it except some monks somewhere. Then Europeans knew it again. But a controversial Swiss botanist and philosopher has added 3 new elements to the mix: salt, sulfur, and mercury.
Was Clarence the alchemist who could turn lead into base metals?
No, George. Clarence was a knight. You remember when the knights were all on the Crusades killing Arabs? Well, kind Uncle Clarence just couldn't kill them.
Why not?
Well, because he was in France, silly. You see, the armor used to chafe him and give him these big boils around his neck. Finally, the barber said, we'll have to lance that boil. Luckily, Clarence had his lance right there with him.
He lanced his boils with a lance?
Well, sure. Of course, he cleaned the lance first. He put it in boiling water.
So he boils his lance so he could lance his boils.
Oh, he did it all the time. He used his lance a lot.
Today, if you go up to a group of astronomers and ask them for a horoscope, you'll get a lecture on science. But back in 1558, astronomers would have given you a birth chart, some predictions, and a large bill. And people paid plenty for their predictions. But the genius of Nostradamus wasn't so much his predictions, it was in getting people to believe his predictions had actually predicted something.
I'm sure a lot of our viewers at home are thinking, well, this looks like a great book, but I already have an almanac which prophesies the events of the year ahead.
Well, so you said it right there. These almanacs prophesy a year ahead. If you call now and order my complete book of predictions, The Centuries, you get not 1 year, not 2 years, not even 100 years, but 2,000 years of prophecy.
So this is something you can pass on to the kids and their kids and the next 113 generations?
Now that's value.
And that's all included in the price.
That's all included. You'll never need to buy another almanac again.
Because it's all in the book.
It's all in the book.
To find out if Nostradamus had indeed ripped off Mr. Dix with faulty predictions, I talked to an expert in the stars, Danish astronomer Tycho Brahe.
You'll have to forgive this thing on my nose. I got it chopped off in a fight about who was the best at maths.
And who won?
We decided I was the best at maths, but he was the best at chopping noses. Ask me how I smell.
How do you smell?
Terrible.
You take math pretty seriously.
Better maths gives you better astronomy, and that means better astrology and better horoscopes. That's why Copernicus put the sun in the middle. It makes the maths easier. He was one heck of an astrologer, that Copernicus.
We showed this expert astronomer the star chart that Nostradamus had prepared for Mr. Dix.
Oh, this is terrible. Rubbish, complete rubbish. He's got two suns here, one in Aquarius and one in Scorpio. Dale, I'd have to say, this guy's maths just doesn't add up.
I'm here in Heidelberg, where high fashion just became that much more affordable. Girls, if you want to look like a lady of the court with a big farthingale for that semicircular look, well, you don't need whale bones and corsets. Now the budget-conscious are using a bum roll, a giant wad of fabric that simulates the farthingale. Talk about dressing hip. Now you can enhance your waist and thighs and make them look so much fatter. Oh, sounds like the show is about to begin. A drum roll for the bum roll.
What if they say, I don't want to be aware and prepared and in the know?
Sue, to those people I say, Sun 12th of Taurus, an earthquake at hand, ruin strikes the filled theater hall to darken and trouble air, sky, and land. Upon God and saints, the infidel will call.
That's worth knowing.
Absolutely.
When we come back, I predict more predictions. There are dozens of stories of the amazing predictions made by the French astrologer Nostradamus and how they came true and how he was exactly right. And unfortunately, most of them are just legends made up long after he died. Even the predictions that made Nostradamus famous during his lifetime aren't all they're cracked up to be.
Now, Nostradamus, I've read your book and I was amazed by some of your predictions. Can we just take a look at one of them here?
Sure.
The young lion will overcome the old in single combat on the battlefield, puts out his eyes in a cage of gold, 2 fleets made one, a cruel death is sealed. Now, let me see if I've got this. Our very own King Henry died in single combat during a joust with a soldier. The jousting field is like a battlefield, and I'm guessing they both had shields embossed with lions?
Well, it's not quite as simple as that, Sue, but I'm glad you asked because it shows our viewers how to interpret my predictions. I say lion, and the lion is the what of the animals?
The king. Wow. And both the men in the joust were kings.
Yes, one was a king, and the other was ruled by a king, and was probably the king of his own household.
Incredible. Now, King Henry, the old lion, was 40 when he died. Some people might say 40 isn't that old.
Oh, it is in lion years. It's 114.
And he was up against a young lion who was, what, 16, 17?
34, which is younger than the old lion.
And you even predict how the king would die.
Yes, I theorized that he would put out his eyes in a cage of gold.
And, of course, the king's head was in a cage we call a helmet. And it was made of iron.
Which is a metal just like gold and costs a few gold coins. And I believe was hammered into shape by a blacksmith probably named Larry Gold.
Actually, his name was Philip Nostbakken.
Oh, Nostbakken is Norwegian for gold.
Really?
Or possibly Lion King.
And the piece of the lance that killed Henry went into his head.
Just inches from one of his eyes.
The word is right here, eyes. And you said that 2 fleets would become one.
Yes. Well, that part probably hasn't happened.
Yet.
Well, Pierre, we finally got a response from Mr. Nostradamus.
Oh, great.
First, the bad news. Nostradamus and his organization say they can't return the money for your horoscope.
Oh, see, this was never about the money for the horoscope. I wanted the money from the inheritance.
Okay, well, now let me finish. He did admit that there may have been some errors in the first one. He's drawn up a revised horoscope for you, free of charge. Here it is.
Okay.
It says, among other things, that you will not receive an inheritance from a stranger at the age of 24.
Well, that's true. So obviously, this one's a lot more accurate. I feel better already.
And that's because you will receive 2 large inheritances from 2 strangers at the age of 27.
Oh, that's so great! That's all I wanted to hear. I'm happy now. Thank you. 2!
Shivers run up and down my spine, but I have to ask you, are these amazingly accurate prophecies real predictions, or just incredibly lucky guesses?
Well, Sue, I think it would be pretty hard to dismiss this as guesswork. I mean, what are the odds that out of 1,000 vaguely worded predictions, one would resemble current events?
Obviously, 1 in 1,000.
I think that says it all.
The remarkable Nostradamus predicted the date of his own death, November 1567, and he actually died June 1566. Spooky. But despite these nagging life and death discrepancies, Nostradamus' work has lived on, serving as a disaster-filled Rorschach inkblot for anyone and everyone. In the 1800s, writers showed how he predicted the rise of Napoleon. Later, the same verses were recycled to show how he'd predicted Hitler. Even the Nazis used Nostradamus' book to show how Hitler would win the war. The Allies then used it to show that Germany would lose. And as we now know, the Allies proved Nostradamus was right. Even today, you can use his predictions to pick winning lottery numbers, or vice versa. So Nostradamus' future looks good, even if his history of predicting things was bad. But then the future's always rosy, and history always bites.
Oh, the Queen was so impressed, she gave him a hood.
Hood?
Sure, for keeping his head warm at night.
You mean he got a knighthood?
And it looked very good on him.
Gracie, a knighthood is an honor.
No, George, it wasn't honor, it was on him to keep his head warm.
Gracie, a knighthood doesn't keep your head warm.
That's just what Uncle Clarence said, so we took it back and complained.
How did the Queen feel about that?
Well, Her Majesty felt so bad about his cold head that she had one of her people take it off and put it in a bag. Wasn't that considerate?